Psst, check this out.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of the Backchannel. In today's episode, I want to tell a story that I think will highlight, accentuate, give credibility to a few different pieces of advice that I usually give to founders where when I tell them, they kind of look skeptical. When I tell them, their eyes roll in the back of their head. And they're kind of separate, not entirely connected, but when I tell you the story, I think it'll make sense. The three things that I want to cover are: one, how much of a numbers game that fundraising is, especially at the earliest stages when you're raising your angel round, your pre-seed round, your seed round. Two, how important it is for you to have your own conviction in what you're doing, have your own North Star that you're charging towards, and have a deep understanding of why you're doing it. And the third is just how important it is to give before you get, how important it is to come to new relationships with a sense of how can I help this person, because of how much it will actually drive forward in terms of what you get back. Okay, so here's the story. I was introduced to a founder via a mutual connection, and the connection was made not around his business necessarily, but just around the fact that we would both be in the same city. We had mutual friends, we had mutual overlap. So I got on the call with his founder and we did the normal small talk dance. Tell me a little bit about yourself. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and start talking about the things that we're working on. Early on in this part of the conversation, it came out that there was a way that he could help me. I was going to be in his city. I didn't know other people in the city. I was going to do some things where it would be nice to connect to people in the city. He immediately thought to himself, oh, there are a couple people that I could probably connect you to. It might be helpful to talk to this person. It might be helpful to talk to this person. Now, when it came to my side of things, as I talked to him about his company and what he was doing, he started describing the business that he was running, which I thought was actually quite interesting. It made a lot of sense for why he was doing it. The problem space that he was describing made a lot of sense. And as he started talking about the fact that he would start fundraising soon, it became obvious to me that I could also help him. So I figured out what type of investors he would be interested in. He mentioned a couple profiles of the types of VCs that he'd want to talk to. And a handful of names came to mind immediately. VCs that were highly credible in his space, and that I was close enough where it would be easy for me to throw the deal over to them to evaluate. Now, here's where the story gets interesting and can start illustrating the importance of those three things that I underlined. Now, I started thinking about the people in my network that I thought could be a good fit for him. I started texting the founder right after we met and said, hey, these are the 3 or 4 people that I'm thinking about sending it to. Are those the right connections for you? And he said, those people sound great. I would love to meet with them. And in reciprocating that gesture, I hadn't even made the introduction yet. He started saying, here are the people that I want to introduce you to. Person A from company B, person C from company D, and person E, someone that I just really respect. He actually started making the introductions, which built momentum towards me wanting to make the same introductions for him. So right off the bat in this story, you can see how important it is to deliver on value, to give before you get, and how the momentum of reciprocity can actually build a relationship and drive forward some of those things that could be helpful in both directions. So when you're meeting new people, if you have easy ways to help them, don't hesitate. Go put it out there and assume that it'll come back to you.
There are a ton of easy to make mistakes when growing a startup. I feel like I've either made them all myself or seen them all as an advisor and investor. One super common one is waiting too long to bring in expert help around managing company finances. I get why that happens though. You're not a tiny company anymore, but you feel like you're not big enough to have an in-house finance team and don't want to waste money. My advice to you is to avoid the mistake of just winging it. This is not a time to fake it till you make it. At least talk to someone early so that you can hear about how the additional help could actually save you money and improve your operations. If you're looking for recommendations on who to talk to, check out Propeller Industries. They've worked with hundreds of venture to growth stage startups So have a ton of deep knowledge to help you avoid major bumps and set your company up for success, whether it's talking to investors or planning for future growth. Set up a free call by going to fundedpod.com/propeller. That's PROPELLER, and tell them we sent you. They're giving Funded listeners a one-time $2,500 new client credit if you work with them for 3 months.
Okay. Now, the next part of it is where it gets very interesting around the idea of conviction in what you do and how much of a numbers game fundraising is. So I reached out to about 4 or 5 investors who specifically invest in this space. 2 in particular got back to me, and both had been involved in massive wins, unicorn style companies in those industries, people that had been in VC for many, many years, who had operating experience, and were just overall extremely credible people when it comes to getting feedback, when it comes to investing in this type of business. One of them came back with an immediate but polite pass and said, "Thanks so much for sharing this, Jason. We don't really believe in this space, so I'm going to quickly pass, and thank you for sharing it with me." That was interesting. I actually was like, did I miss something here? I thought this was extremely interesting myself, given some of the other companies that I had seen in this space who were doing it differently, who didn't have this unique insight that this person had. And it actually started getting me to question my own thoughts of, maybe my filter is off. And then immediately after, maybe 8 hours after, I get another response from a second VC who is as equally credible as the first. And he comes back saying, "Wow, this is very interesting, Jason. This is an overlap of 2 of the main trends that I have been following and that I deeply believe in. I'd love to meet this founder." Insane. And it's one of those things that if you hadn't ever seen that before in your life, and I've seen it over and over and over again, you might not understand just how important it is to have a really large target list when it comes to finding investors. You just can't predict which investors are going to like your deal and not like your deal, especially at the earliest stages. You just can't tell yourself any specific story other than the positive story that if you believe in what you're doing and there's another investor that thinks the way that you think, there is likely another investor out there. You're just going to have to go out and find that person. And if you couldn't tell, the conviction in what you do is the next part of that takeaway, which is you are going to get people that tell you that it's not a good idea, that we don't believe in your space. And so having your own deep conviction around what you do, something that you've analyzed yourself, that you've aligned with the experiences that you have and the stuff that you understand and you alone understand, that's going to be really important as you go out to fundraise, because you are going to get rejected. You're going to get people telling you that you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. And if you don't have that deep conviction, the act of fundraising might make you turn around and pack up shop. Okay? And I'll just say one last thing. I had only thought about those 3 different elements that I wanted to underline, but one thing just popped into my head, and that is how influential a process is and how influential the credibility of other investors looking at a deal and also liking a deal alongside an investor is. If you heard what I said, when the first investor passed, it gave me a jolt of insecurity around my own beliefs about this company. And while I'm not a full-time investor, I do think like an investor. I was an investor. And I'll tell you, even the most strongly convicted investors are human, which means they're influenced by human psychology. You deeply think that this one founder has what it takes, is working on something interesting, and you hear one dissenting opinion, and it makes you question yourself for a second. Now, you're going to probably power ahead if you're a deeply convicted investor, but that one little doubt, that one little insecurity will creep in your mind. But the opposite is also true. if your initial feeling is like, this is a really interesting idea, and you hear another investor is interested in it, or you hear another investor say, this is also really interesting, well, then all of a sudden your conviction grows and your likelihood of actually pushing forward in a deal grows. So build that large top of funnel, build a process, surround the investors that you're talking to with other investors who are also leaning in. And if you do those things, you'll be putting yourself in the best possible position to close a round. All right. I hope that personal story about two different investors having 180-degree, complete opposite perspectives on a deal gets you to understand some of the stuff that I've been trying to share with founders on how they should fundraise. All right. Until next time, we'll see you on the back channel.